I don't know how he learnt that he had bowel cancer. I just remember the phone call. Okay, maybe I do need those tissues. I remember the phone call from my mother. And whenever you hear the word cancer, you think the worst, right? You don't think that there's an opportunity to come back from that. So that was 3 years ago now, 3 years ago. I mean, when you hear that again, you don't feel like there's any coming back from that, but you know that the journey is a long one. You know, there was chemotherapy and things like that had to happen for him. The hardest part about that is your parents and thinking about how they have to cope. Because I know my brother, he's pretty resilient, always positive, but yeah. So he was 54 when he was diagnosed. It was, a 2-year journey with him till him dying last year. He had symptoms, he had pain, there were signs there for him. And I don't know why he ignored them. Maybe it was fear, I don't know. But there were definitely those signs prior to the diagnosis coming. And again, I think of when my brother was told that this was it. It was my mother, myself, my sister in the room at the time that he was told that there was nothing else that could be done for him. It's like the whole room closing in on you. You don't know where to look, what to say. I didn't want to look at my mother because I knew the pain that she would be going through. And you just want to get out of there. And for us as a family, feeling that, I don't even know how my brother felt about it. I didn't even want to talk to him about it. I was too afraid to speak to him because I didn't know what he was going to say to me. What can you say? You're going to die. But he was determined. He was determined that he was going to live. At the end, when they said to him, there's nothing we can do for you, I remember him saying, oh, well, that's that then. And he walked out. But he still talked about the fact that he was going to beat this. And even in his last breath, he didn't want to go. Yeah, I was there when he took his last breath. Fought right to the end. Sorry, I haven't. It's funny, these things, you experience it and then you feel like you deal with it. And then when you talk about it again, you go, well, maybe I haven't. But no, I was there and it was a privilege. It really was a privilege to hold his hand, tell him it was okay. And I never thought that talking about my brother would bring me to this state, although I was nervous about doing the interview. But yeah, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering for those around, obviously for my brother, but it has a ripple effect on the rest of the family and what we saw, what we heard. There's no need to die from this because there are symptoms. And you know, part of me is I get angry at my brother because I go, why didn't you listen? Why didn't you do something about this? But then also, you know, trying to break that down too. What is the fear? Why do we prevent ourselves? What is it about it that we don't want to present ourselves at a doctor, or we don't want to talk to someone and go, hey, look, I think something's wrong? I don't know. Is it because we know that it's the worst and we don't want to acknowledge that? Do we just bury our head in the sand and think it's all going to go away? And I know my mother's really, even though she can't speak about my brother, she's still not at a stage where she can have that discussion about him. She can talk about cancer and everything around it, but not about him in particular. But I know that this is part of, you know, her determination from this point on too, is to make people aware when you're experiencing something, to be able to come forward and talk about it. But also for those whose families have gone through this experience and how her experiences can help them. You know, even the time that we were caring for him over those 2 years, and the conversations you have, and those times that, you know, are really, really precious to you now. You have a little bit of a giggle about it at the time, but, you know, on reflection now, you look back and you go, man, those were fun times, just sitting around, hearing how he grew up. I mean, that's the thing about grief though, isn't it? Just kind of pops up. Not that I should have not expected that, given the fact that he was the subject of this. Yeah, it just reminds me that there's still some raw stuff there. It's that whole thing around, well, he's not in any pain, so it's going to be okay. He's okay. But then you have to unpack the 2 years of being at appointments. And I mean, I've spoken about it openly, about how I'd had panic attacks on air. And it wasn't until I unpacked everything that it came down to, you know, a lot of grief. Just the same as, I guess, he chose to ignore the symptoms. It's the same thing with grief, right? You just kind of go, you just got to get on with stuff. But the reality is it's sitting there somewhere and waiting for some opportunity to present itself. And for me, it came in that form of panic attacks. But yeah, we're getting there.